On Saturday, October 16th, Mikey Garcia found himself in a battle with an unknown fighter to most boxing followers in the States. Sandor Martin from Spain, a southpaw who came to America in his first fight to take on the former world champion Garcia in a bout that surprised many a fan that tuned in. Not only did it surprise fans, but it surprised Mikey as well. Sandor Martin was able to come away with a majority decision in a 10-round bout that saw him taking on Mikey in a fashion that we hadn't seen. Was it ring rust because of Mikey's time outside of the ring? Or was it something else more telling, that Sandor Martin is a comer? He's up and coming. He might be the guy who is ready to step up in another class. Is he that guy? Will we find out? Will he be able to do this again? Will Mikey ask for a rematch? That remains to be seen. But this is what we're going to talk about in this video after this. When Mikey stepped into the ring against Sandor Martin on October 16th, he was looking to get back into boxing from the standpoint of meeting more challenges. His previous bout was a February 2020 fight against Jesse Vargas, in which he won a unanimous decision. He dropped Vargas in the 5th round. Some people considered it a lackluster victory. So, for his next outing, he carefully selected Sandor Martin from Spain, who entered the bout with a record of 38-2 with 13 KOs. Though he's a southpaw, I guess they had figured that him being a southpaw wouldn't harm Mikey, because only 13 knockouts in almost 40 fights. So they figured this could be a safe bet here. But it turned into something else, as Sandor was able to take the fight to Mikey in a manner of which Mikey wasn't necessarily expecting. It was a little bit funny to watch the fight because I had never seen Sandor fight before, but he was doing some good things in there. And Mikey was pressing the action, but Sandor, who was mobile, also had a little bit of pop on his punch, just enough to make Mikey not totally try to open up on him. And Mikey felt that he had won the fight when the judges gave their final tallies. But this fight was action. Though Mikey was coming in, pursuing, and Sandor was moving, giving angles, Mikey decided to say that the man was running, which I didn't see that at all. I didn't consider him running, but he was landing clean and effective shots, countering Mikey very well, and keeping Mikey from totally opening up. And the one time that Mikey did try to open up, which was late in the fight, maybe like the 8th or 9th round, you could see Sandor was able to follow and come right back with his own shots. Mikey wasn't landing clearly either. Some of the shots were missing, some of them scored, but this was a fight, and the opponent came to fight on this night. Very interesting, because Mikey was supposed to go in there in front of his hometown crowd and give them a show. Well, the show that he gave wasn't the one they intended, because Martin won the majority of the rounds. On my personal scorecard, I think I only gave Mikey 3 rounds. And that wasn't being discriminating. I was really looking at the action. I was trying to gauge what was Mikey doing well and what where his weaknesses, where Sandor's weaknesses were. And on this night, he wasn't showing a lot of them. So it was a situation where Mikey, he was on the losing end, but it was still an entertaining fight. It was the type of fight that we like to see, as the boxing public. And sometimes when you have a favorite guy fighting in his hometown, these things always seem to happen. It's like, that's why a lot of fighters, they don't fight in their hometown right away. They may say, oh, we'll come back one day and do a fight at home, but it's just something about that, fighting in front of your home people. But recently, after the fight, Mikey gave an interview to Fight Hype to let us know exactly what his thoughts were about the fight and where he intends to go. It appears like he wants to go back down to 140, which, thank goodness, if he does that, I've been saying that's where he should be. It would be even better if he cut that extra weight and get back down to 135, but I know Mikey has probably really outgrown that by now. He's not necessarily a spring chicken in the sport anymore. He's 33 years old, so he may not be interested in that. But 140, yes. And if Mikey wanted to try and challenge after a comeback, you want to try to challenge someone like that undisputed champion you have there, I would not be mad at you. But before we get into anything else, let's listen to what Mikey had to say about his experience there.
Ring ASAP.
Yeah, we want to get back. I don't want to take too much time off in between. This last year and a half wasn't necessarily my choice. It's not like I wanted to take a whole lot of time off. I mean, I gotta remind people, COVID did fucking happen last year where everybody stopped boxing, not just me. I fought February of 2020, right before the whole, shutdown and pandemic and everything. But then didn't have any fight for the whole year. And then earlier this year, we were always trying to secure a bigger fight with Manny and this and that. It never happened. So it's not like I didn't want to be in the ring. It just didn't happen. But now I want to give it back. I'm not happy, obviously, with last fight's results. I'm not happy with how that went. I thought I did a lot better than I got credit for, but that's all right. It's just boxing, whatever.
It's interesting that he said about the Manny Pacquiao fight, he thought that they were going to get that fight. I really wonder from the Pacquiao people what they were doing. There were a lot of names in hats for potential opportunity to face Manny Pacquiao. Terrence Bud Crawford, a rematch with Keith Thurman, Mikey Garcia, Ryan Garcia, who else did they have? Errol Spence. There were so many names being jostled about. I really am confused and wonder what was the plan for the Pacquiao camp, because he eventually settled on Yordenis Ugas after Errol Spence wasn't able to meet their date with an injury. So Manny was holding up a lot of things here with people, given the thought that he would go in against someone and face someone. So you could see these guys were putting their careers on hold. It's good that Manny's going to retire. And I don't say that with hate against Manny Pacquiao. I say that because he's an elder statesman, 40 plus years old, and he was a bank for a lot of these guys. If they faced Manny, they were going to get their highest payday ever. Well, he's moving on now, and that's a good thing because it opens things up a little bit more now where some of these fighters can begin to think about and concentrate on fighting one another. Mikey Garcia and Manny Pacquiao probably would have been a better fight than Yordenis Ugas and Manny Pacquiao, for Pacquiao and for Mikey. But Mikey has kind of danced to his own tune over the past few years, and it's understandably why, because when he was fighting under Top Rank, he wasn't happy over there with how they were running things and how they were steering and guiding his career. So he had to sit out for a while after leaving Top Rank. But when he came back on with independence, and he has done well for himself economically. But now let's get down to the business of his interview, where he speaks on his thoughts about the fight and what's in the future.
You got to get back in it and show everybody that there's still so much more. There's still a lot more, and I'll be fighting, you know, and maybe within 6 months or less, because I don't want to take too much time off. You know, maybe give me about 4 months and I'll be back.
Okay, now with you just saying right now that you felt that you did better than what the scorecards reflected. Now, aside from that, and I'm sure that you've assessed the actual fight yourself too, correct? Like, or maybe you reviewed it, I don't know. But like, how would you do things differently now? More or less is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I would fight a little different now. See, I thought we did fine. I thought we did better, like I said, than we got credit for. Being the aggressor, you know, looking for the fight, I felt like that was, you know, giving me good scoring. But judges didn't see it the same way, and that's the way boxing goes sometimes. Sometimes judges will score in favor of the aggressor. Sometimes they score more in favor of the boxer. In this case, they scored more in favor of Martin. Now, I think he also got credited more than he might have actually earned, just for the fact that since I wasn't as effective as people expected me to be, they credited him a lot more as if he was the one causing all that.
Well, that's the thing about a winner. Mikey is a winner in sports. And a lot of times when they do suffer defeat or face a setback, they don't want to look within, they look externally. Mikey lost this fight not because the judges just favored Martin. Martin outboxed Mikey, okay? That's the thing we have to get clear here. He was totally outboxed. Now, that is not a bad thing as far as, oh, you lost. What it means is that you have to find a way to defeat the style that Martin brought to the ring, Mikey. You see, if you had been more aggressive in letting your hands go, took a few risks in there, maybe something could have happened in your favor that could sway the judges. But the fact that you didn't do those things, that's not on the judges, because you're supposed to be able to go in there and take the fight into your hands and out of the judges. Because a lot of times judges, they don't see everything, okay? They see the fight from one position, sitting on the ring. Another judge is sitting on the other two sides of the ring. They don't always see everything. But one thing you can do is cut the ring off, let your hands go in combinations, work the body and work up top, and start everything off of a jab. Sandor Martin was outboxing you. Even being a southpaw, which is also difficulty in coming back off of a layoff. I don't know how much southpaw work Mikey got in the gym, but he's a professional and he should have got quality. Southpaw sparring in the gym, and it would have made a difference for him totally. But in this instance, you can't just say that the judges, because Mikey, you could have done more. Like I said, in that 8th or 9th round, you tried to open up on the guy, but he was doing some things to counter you. And so when he adjusted to you, you were supposed to adjust to his adjustment. That's the finer points of boxing.
The reason why he was being more effective than me is because he kept obviously running around. He wasn't really engaging or trying to engage. And whenever he did punch, it was more like little pity-pat punches just to try to keep me away. But they weren't really landing and hurting me at any point. I landed a few shots and he just ran away after that. He wouldn't engage. So when someone's not trying to fight, it complicates things so much more.
Well, another point, Mikey. Excuse me. He was not running around, okay? He was giving you angles. He was allowing you to come into a certain range, and then he was firing and stepping out of that range to make you reset and have to start all over again. Again, this is boxing ring generalship. And you're old enough to know this, meaning 33 years of age, you've been boxing since you were a kid. No one is supposed to just stand there and go toe-to-toe with the other guy if that is not to his advantage. It might have been to your advantage, but since he didn't fight your fight, you were supposed to impose yourself by making an adjustment, and you were not able to do that. Secondly, if you want to speak about he throwing pity-pat punches, if they were pity-pat punches and weren't hurting you very much, then why didn't you open up and go in there and get after the guy? Because that's the other part of things that I was saying. If they were pity-pat punches, you were supposed to walk him down and start cutting him, chopping him down to the body, to the head. I believe he had a little bit more pop on his punches than Mikey wants to admit to. I am never calling Mikey a chump. He's a world champion, a former world champion 2 times over. I will not say that he's not a good fighter. He's a good fighter. But Mikey, you have to be honest with yourself. There were things that you could have done that you did not, and the fight ended up going the other guy's way because you were not able to impose yourself. But it had nothing to do with him running around. He didn't leave the ring, not one time during that 10 rounds. He was right there where you were. So it was up to you to make the adjustments and do something different and get this guy fighting under your fight. But you were not able to do that.
The southpaw stance always complicates things for every fighter. So we knew that coming into that, it was gonna be tricky because of the southpaw stance, and he was a boxer. But when someone's really not trying to engage, it just complicates things a lot more.
But now that you're familiar and you've seen the outcome of something of this nature, will you yourself, I guess you could say, will you be prepared a little bit differently? Are you willing to make different?
If I was to fight him again, I would fight a little different. Just because I wouldn't want to let the score be so much like in the air like that. I would try and fight differently to get a clear victory, to where it's like, okay, even if you don't knock him out, but hey, you can tell that I won. Versus some of the rounds were, a lot of the rounds were very low in action.
If the rounds were low in action, whose fault is that? If your conditioning wasn't up to par and you couldn't press like you wanted to press, say that. Be honest with yourself. That way the people can respect what you have to say more. But don't look for excuses. Don't look for an external reason. If the rounds didn't have much action, you're in there to fight. Let your hands go. Why did you not do more of that? See, this is what we're talking about here. Ring generalship can be from the vantage point of the guy being offensive or the guy being defensive, because he's making the offensive guy miss. He's countering and he's escaping out of the range of the guy to touch him. The name of the game is to hit and not be hit, not to hit and hit and hit each other until one guy falters. Okay? So If Martin didn't cooperate with what you were trying to do, it is up to you to make the adjustment, to make things difficult for him. Give the man more credit than what you're giving him, because he was able to fight a good fight. This is what I mean when I talk about these fighters and their egos. A lot of times, a guy just needs to get in there and face off and challenge himself. And in challenging himself, sometimes that means taking it to the other guy and taking it to the max. How many times have you seen a fight end after the final bell? You see the guys walking around and you know they're hugging their corners and slapping hands and got their hands raised. And then how many other times have you seen when fighters, when that final bell rings, they're so dog tired they'll almost collapse into their corner man's arms? See, that's when a guy has really laid it out there and given it his all. These guys look like they were ready to go play a pickup game of basketball after the fight was over. Because one didn't get hurt much, that was Sandor Martin, and two, the other guy might have been a little bit out of shape. Mikey didn't have abs in this fight, and he knows why. Only he knows why. But again, you have to credit the guy who was successful here, and that was Sandor Martin, who I hope gets a chance to come back and fight in America again, because he gave a nice performance for a first-timer. And he's a tough southpaw. Most southpaws are tough because they are always on that weird angle of things that the orthodox fighters are trying to get done in there. And it's like they can come from weird angles with certain things. But again, being a fighter who's had 50 fights, Mikey should know better. Okay? So there's no excuse. You have to get in there and do better. You know?
Hard to, judge, because there was not a whole lot of dominance from either one. Like, I wasn't able to dominate rounds clearly, and he wasn't able to dominate rounds clearly. Like, there were a lot of rounds where it was kind of like, well, it depends on who you're gonna favor. You want to score in favor of the aggressor, or do you want to score in favor of the boxer? And they're kind of like in the air, because he wasn't dominate in any of the rounds like that. He wasn't landing punches, at will like a real boxer, boxer puncher normally does.
I disagree with that. Mikey, this young man boxed you very well. And sometimes when he went forward behind his punches, like he started to do after the third or fourth round, when he started to stand his ground and counter you and come back at you, he was doing this very successfully. And you kind of backed up off of that. That was your opportunity to take it to him, but he made you adjust somewhat by going back. So look at the tape, realize your faults and the mistakes that you made, and come back and be better. That's all you need to do. Off the jab. You didn't jab enough. You were just looking for big punches. You were hoping to nail a guy a shot because he's a southpaw. You're lucky to get your right hand in there. But it's not going to work that way. You have to set things up. And you have to be able to cut the ring off on an opponent to get him to engage. If you're just going to follow a guy around all night long, the judges are not going to do much for you being in pursuit. You already had a couple of rounds in your pocket because you were fighting on your home turf. So the fact that this man was able to take that away from you means that you just didn't do enough, Mikey. You just didn't do enough. And that's the honest truth and assessment of this.
And I also wasn't as dominant as I probably could have been. But I was also being, cautious because he was just running around. So it's harder.
Guess that's what I'm asking you.
And the score was kind of like, it's kind of like in the air, because neither one of us was as dominant. Does that make sense? So maybe next time around, I could try to be a little more dominant so that it doesn't leave that, in the air. It doesn't leave room for that.
I guess you could say that was more or less what my question was. Are you going to be more aggressive, more dominant?
I would also have liked to have the fight in a 12-round fight versus a 10-round fight. I thought I was coming on a little bit better in the end, we were actually starting to exchange a little bit of punches. He actually started exchanging some punches in the last, rounds. So maybe those extra 2 rounds would have also helped, because it would have given me an opportunity to connect more shots, more punches, because he was also starting to engage a little bit. So I would have liked the fight to be a 12-round fight.
Yeah, that's okay. Sometimes you have to negotiate that in a contract, especially for a non-title bout. But listen, Mikey, it's your fight to win or lose. And on that particular night, you did lose the fight. But that you're not a loser, you're a winner. You always have been. And you can come back from this. But you have to bring those tools out of the toolbox. Get that jab pumping. Get your feet moving. When you're not in the type of shape that you need to be, you can't move like you need to move. I've seen you move. So it's up to you. Look in the mirror. Stop looking outside externally for the answers, because the answers are within you. This is Stormy B, man. Those are my thoughts of sharing of this interview with Mikey Garcia with you. This was a pretty good fight that he put up with Sandor Martin, and I expect to see more from Mikey in the future. I hope that he does better. I hope he's able to come back at 140 and see the likes of Josh Taylor. I think that would be a tremendous fight, and I think that you all would love to see it too. What do you think? Shout out to the LDBC, the Lions Den boxing community, and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Till the next time we meet, peace to everyone out there, and everyone remain safe.